Thank you all for coming out tonight. I know this isn't what you expected when you heard I'd be speaking here. Most of you probably thought I'd talk about movies, or maybe I'd have another conversation with an empty chair, which, let me tell you, was nowhere near as strange as what I'm about to share with you. I'm 90-something years old now, and I've seen a lot in my life. I've made westerns, cop movies, war films. I've directed stories about heroes and villains, about redemption and revenge. I've met presidents, astronauts, legends of every kind, but nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for what happened to me about 3 years ago. I'm going to tell you about the night Jesus Christ appeared to me in a dream and spoke to me about America. Now, before you start shifting in your seats or checking your watches, hear me out. I know how this sounds. I'm not a preacher. I'm not running for office. I'm not selling anything. I'm just an old man who's spent most of his life squinting into the California sun, making movies, and trying to keep his head on straight. I've never been one for mystical experiences or spiritual visions. I'm a practical man. I believe in what I can see, what I can touch, what I can build with my own two hands. But this happened, and it was as real as anything I've ever experienced. It was a Tuesday night in late September. I remember that specifically because I'd spent the day working on some ranch business up in Carmel. My body was tired, the kind of tired that comes from a full day of physical work, not the mental exhaustion you get from sitting behind a camera or in an editing room. I'd had a simple dinner, nothing fancy, some grilled chicken, vegetables from the garden, a glass of water. I don't drink much anymore. At my age, you learn to keep things simple. I went to bed early, around 9 o'clock. The windows were open, and I could hear the Pacific Ocean in the distance, that eternal rhythm of waves that I've fallen asleep to for decades. It's a sound that usually brings me peace, that reminds me of how small we all are in the grand scheme of things. I fell asleep quickly, which isn't always the case at my age. And then I found myself in a dream, but it wasn't like any dream I'd ever had before. You know how dreams usually are fragmented, chaotic, jumping from scene to scene without any logic. This wasn't like that. This was clear. This was focused. This was, for lack of a better word, more real than real. I was standing in a place that looked like the high desert of Nevada or Arizona, somewhere I'd filmed before, somewhere that felt familiar. The sky was that deep, endless blue you only see in the American West, and the sun was beginning to set, painting everything in shades of gold and amber. The air was perfectly still, not a breath of wind, and there was a silence that was somehow both empty and full at the same time. And then I saw him. He was standing about 30 feet away from me, and I knew immediately who he was. Don't ask me how, I just knew. It was knowledge that came from somewhere deeper than my mind, deeper than my five senses. He wasn't dressed in robes, like you see in paintings. He was wearing simple clothes, jeans, a work shirt, boots. He looked like a carpenter, which I suppose makes sense. He looked like someone who worked with his hands, someone who understood what it meant to sweat, to build something from nothing. His face, I've thought about how to describe his face 1,000 times since that night. It was weathered but ageless, strong but gentle. His eyes were dark and deep, and when he looked at me, I felt like he was seeing everything, every mistake I'd ever made, every good deed, every moment of doubt, and every moment of courage. And there was no judgment in that gaze, only understanding, only love. He walked toward me slowly, and I found I couldn't move. Not because I was paralyzed with fear, but because I didn't want to move. I wanted to stay exactly where I was, in that moment, in that presence. When he was about 10 feet away, he stopped and smiled. It was a small smile, quiet and knowing, the kind of smile that says, I know you're confused, but it's going to be okay. Then he spoke. His voice was deep and calm, with an authority that came not from volume, but from certainty. Clint, he said, and hearing him say my name made something in my chest tighten. I've come to tell you something about America. I nodded. I didn't know what else to do. I've talked to presidents and face-down actors having meltdowns and directed scenes with hundreds of extras, but standing there in front of him, I felt like a child. I know you're wondering why I'm here, he continued. Why you? Why now? You've never been a particularly religious man. You've had your doubts, your questions. You've made your peace with the idea that some things can't be known, can't be proven. And that's okay. I don't need your perfection. I never did. What I need right now is your voice. He paused and looked out across the desert landscape, and I followed his gaze. The sun was sinking lower now, and the shadows were growing longer. America, he said. And there was something in the way he said it, a mixture of affection and sadness. Do you know what America was supposed to be? I shook my head. I thought I knew. Freedom, opportunity, the pursuit of happiness, all the things we learn in school, all the ideals we fight wars to defend. But standing there, I realized I didn't really know. Not the way he knew. America was meant to be a light, he said, turning back to me. Not the only light, never that, but a light nonetheless. A place where people could start over, where mistakes could be forgiven, where a person's worth wasn't determined by their birth but by their character and their choices. A place built on the idea that every human being has dignity, has value, has the right to life and liberty, and the pursuit of meaning. He took a step closer to me, but somewhere along the way, you've lost sight of that. Not all of you, not completely, but enough that it's time for a reminder. I found my voice then. What do you mean? I asked. What have we lost? He looked at me with those deep, knowing eyes. You've become divided, he said simply. You've forgotten that before you are Republican or Democrat, conservative or liberal, black or white, rich or poor, you are first and foremost human beings created in the image of God. You are brothers and sisters. You are family. I felt something twist in my gut because I knew he was right. God knows I'd seen it, the anger, the contempt, the way people talk past each other instead of to each other, the way we've turned our neighbors into enemies over politics, over opinions, over things that, in the grand scheme of eternity, matter so much less than we think they do. You've made idols of your ideologies, he continued. Both sides have done this. You've taken political positions and elevated them to the level of religious doctrine. You've decided that anyone who disagrees with you isn't just wrong, they're evil. And in doing so, you've forgotten how to love. You've forgotten how to forgive. You've forgotten how to listen. He started walking, and I walked beside him. We moved across that desert landscape, our boots crunching on the dry earth. I came to earth and told people to love their enemies. He said, not to tolerate them, not to coexist with them, to love them. Do you know how radical that was? Do you know how radical that still is? The Pharisees and the Sadducees hated each other. The Jews and the Samaritans despised one another. The Romans oppressed everyone. And I came and said, love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. If someone strikes you on one cheek, turn to them the other also. He stopped walking and turned to face me fully. That message hasn't changed, Clint. It's as true now as it was 2,000 years ago, but your country has forgotten it. You've decided it's more important to win than to love, more important to be right than to be kind, more important to defeat the other side than to understand them. I thought about all the conversations I'd had over the years, all the arguments about politics and policy. I thought about the times I'd been angry at people who saw things differently than I did, the times I dismissed their concerns or their fears because they didn't align with my own. What do you want us to do? I asked him. How do we fix this? He smiled again, that same gentle smile. It starts with individuals, he said. It always starts with individuals. One person deciding to love instead of hate. One person choosing to forgive instead of holding a grudge. One person having the courage to reach across the divide and say, you're my brother, you're my sister. We may disagree, but I will not dehumanize you. I will not demonize you. I will try to understand you. He put his hand on my shoulder, and I felt warmth spread through my entire body. America has done great things, he said. You've been a beacon of hope for millions. You've welcomed the tired, the poor, the huddled masses. You've sacrificed to defeat tyranny. You've innovated and created and built. You've produced art and music and stories that have inspired the world. But you've also done terrible things. You've enslaved people. You've broken treaties. You've been greedy and prideful and cruel. Like every nation, like every person, you are capable of both great good and great evil. The question now, he continued, is which will you choose? Will you continue down this path of division and hatred? Will you let fear and anger dictate your future? Or will you remember what you were meant to be? Will you remember that love is stronger than hate, that forgiveness is more powerful than vengeance, that unity is more enduring than division? I felt tears on my cheeks, and I'm not a man who cries easily. It seems impossible, I said. People are so angry. They're so entrenched in their positions. I know, he said softly. I know it seems impossible. It seemed impossible for the blind to see, for the lame to walk, for the dead to rise, but nothing is impossible with God. Nothing is impossible when people choose love over fear. He took his hand from my shoulder and looked out at the horizon again. The sun was almost completely set now, and the first stars were beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Tell them this, he said. Tell them that I love them, all of them. The conservatives and the liberals, the believers and the doubters, the successful and the struggling. Tell them that their worth doesn't come from their accomplishments or their bank accounts or their political victories. It comes from the simple fact that they exist, that they are my children, that they are loved beyond measure. Tell them to put down their weapons, the weapons of rhetoric, of judgment, of contempt. Tell them to pick up the tools of peace, compassion, understanding, humility. Tell them that it's not weak to admit when you're wrong. It's not naive to choose mercy over judgment. It's not foolish to believe that things can be better. He turned back to me one last time. Tell them that America's best days can still be ahead of her, but only if she remembers what she was meant to be. Not a place of perfect people that will never exist, but a place where imperfect people strive together toward something better, a place where freedom is balanced with responsibility, a place where rights are honored alongside duties, a place where the strong protect the weak, where the wealthy care for the poor, where the majority respects the minority. Tell them, he said, and his voice was gentle but firm, that time is shorter than they think, that life is more precious than they realize, that the arguments they think are so important will fade away, but love endures forever. I wanted to ask him more. I had 1,000 questions, but even as I opened my mouth to speak, I felt myself beginning to wake up. The desert was fading, his figure was becoming translucent, and I was being pulled back into my bedroom in Carmel, back into my aging body, back into the world. The last thing I heard him say was this: "Fear not, Clint, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. I am with all of you. I never left." And then I was awake. I sat up in bed, and I could still feel the warmth where his hand had touched my shoulder. The room was dark except for the moonlight coming through the window, and I could still hear the ocean in the distance. But everything felt different. I felt different. I looked at the clock. It was 2 a.m. I'd been asleep for 5 hours, but it had felt like only minutes. I got out of bed and went to my desk. I turned on the lamp and found a piece of paper and a pen, and I started writing down everything I could remember. Every word he'd said, every detail of that desert landscape, every emotion I'd felt. I wrote for 2 hours straight, and when I was done, my hand was cramping and my eyes were tired, but I had it all down. Since that night, I've thought about that encounter every single day. I've thought about his message, about what he asked me to do, and I've wrestled with it, I'll be honest with you. I'm not used to being a messenger. I'm used to telling stories, creating characters, exploring themes, but this is different. This is real. This happened to me. I've asked myself 1,000 times if it was just a dream, if my subconscious was working through my concerns about the state of the country, if my brain was just playing tricks on me. But deep down, in the part of me that knows truth when it encounters it, I know it was more than that. I know he was really there. I know that message was real. So what do I do with it? What am I supposed to do with a message from Jesus Christ about America? I thought about keeping it to myself. Lord knows I don't need people thinking I've lost my mind. I don't need the mockery or the skepticism or the tabloid headlines. But every time I think about staying quiet, I feel that warmth on my shoulder again, and I remember his last words, "I am with you always." So I'm telling you what he told me. I'm telling you that we need to love each other again, that we need to see each other as human beings, not as caricatures or enemies, that we need to remember what really matters, not the next election, not the next controversy, not the next outrage on social media. What matters is how we treat each other, how we care for the vulnerable, how we extend grace and mercy and compassion. I'm telling you that America's problems aren't fundamentally political, they're spiritual. They're about the human heart. And no legislation, no matter how well-intentioned, can fix a heart that's hardened by hate. No policy, no matter how perfectly crafted, can heal a soul that's consumed by bitterness. Only love can do that. Only forgiveness can do that. Only grace can do that. I'm not saying this will be easy. Jesus never promised easy. He promised that his yoke would be easy and his burden light compared to the burden of sin and hatred, but he never said following him would be comfortable or convenient. He never said loving your enemies would feel good or that turning the other cheek wouldn't hurt, but he did promise that it would be worth it. He promised that love would triumph. He promised that light would overcome darkness. He promised that he would be with us every step of the way. I don't know why he chose to appear to me. I don't know why he picked an aging actor and director to deliver this message. Maybe because I've made movies about flawed men trying to find redemption. Maybe because I've spent my career exploring themes of justice and mercy, violence and peace, vengeance and forgiveness. Or maybe just because I was willing to listen, but the why doesn't matter as much as the what. What he said, what he's asking us to do. He's asking us to be better, to do better, to love more and hate less, to forgive more and judge less, to understand more and condemn less. He's asking us to remember that we're all in this together, that we all share the same planet, breathe the same air, look up at the same stars. that we're all trying to make sense of this strange and beautiful and difficult thing called life. He's asking us to remember that before we are Americans, we are humans. And before we are humans, we are his children. All of us. No exceptions. I know some of you don't believe in God. I know some of you don't believe in Jesus. I know some of you think this whole story is either a fabrication or a delusion. And that's okay. You don't have to believe in my encounter to hear the message. You don't have to be religious to recognize the truth in what he said. We do need to love each other more. We do need to stop demonizing those who disagree with us. We do need to remember our common humanity. These aren't just religious principles. They're human principles. They're the foundation of any healthy society, any functioning democracy, any community worth living in. I'm an old man now. I don't know how many years I have left. But I know this. I want to spend whatever time I have left trying to live out that message, trying to love more, trying to understand more, trying to bridge the divides instead of widening them. I want America to remember what she was meant to be. Not perfect, we never were and never will be, but striving, always striving toward that more perfect union, always trying to form a better, more just, more compassionate society. That's what he wants for us too. Not perfection, but progress. Not instant transformation, but gradual growth. Not flawless execution, but faithful effort. So I'm asking you, all of you, regardless of your politics or your religion or your background, to think about what you can do. What can you do today, right now, to love someone you disagree with? What can you do to extend grace instead of judgment? What can you do to build a bridge instead of a wall? Start small. Start with one person. Start with one conversation. Start with one choice to see someone else's humanity instead of their ideology. And then do it again tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that. That's how we change a culture. That's how we heal a nation. One person at a time. One act of love at a time. One choice to be better at a time. Jesus appeared to me in a dream and told me something about America. He told me that we're in trouble, but we're not beyond hope. He told me that we're divided, but we can be united. He told me that we've lost our way, but we can find it again. He told me that he loves us, all of us, more than we can possibly imagine. And he's asking us to love each other the way he loves us. That's the message. That's what I came here to tell you tonight. I don't expect everyone to believe me. I don't expect this to change everything overnight. But I do expect, I hope, that maybe it will change something in someone. That maybe someone will hear this and decide to be a little kinder tomorrow, a little more patient, a little more loving, because that's how it starts, with individuals making individual choices, and then those individuals inspire others, and those others inspire still more, and gradually, slowly, steadily, things begin to change. I've spent my life telling stories. Stories about heroes and villains, about justice and injustice, about the eternal struggle between good and evil. But the best story, the truest story, is the one we're living right now. The story of imperfect people trying to build a better world. The story of broken people seeking redemption. The story of divided people finding unity. That's the story Jesus wants us to write. That's the story he believes we can write. I believe it too. Thank you for listening. God bless you all, and God bless America.